here at Left Main REI. And I'm going to be the one that makes sure all of your questions get answered and that this recording is sent out to all of you when we're finished. I'm also so excited to introduce our guest speaker today, someone who you're probably all familiar with, Rhen Bartlett. In case you guys didn't know, Rhen is an accomplished 8-figure wholesaling coach and real estate investor. He brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise in this industry, and his insights have helped many real estate professionals achieve their financial goals. Rhen is renowned for his ability to develop and implement effective strategies that consistently deliver exceptional results. And what's even more exciting is that today, Rhen is going to talk to all of us about how we can change our sales culture to increase sales. So with that, I'll let Rhen just jump into it. How are you doing over there? I think you're on mute.
What about now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're all good.
All right, great. Thank you for that introduction. Happy to be here with you guys today. Can't really see you, but we're gonna get after it pretty hard. But yep, I've been in real estate investing space for about 5 years, going on 6 years now. Built a wholesale company up to north of $20 million in gross revenue over the past 5 years, and with that, I've hired probably over 500 salespeople, and went on a pretty interesting journey from probably being the worst sales manager on the planet to what I think is pretty decent, well enough to accomplish the success that we had and still have to this day, right? So I still run an investment company out of Atlanta. I started rebuilding that and kind of launched that in July of 2022. And we got, just in that short amount of time, we have about 10 or 11 reps now, and we're very close to getting back to 7-figure months from gross profit. So that'll happen before July. So really dialed in with that. Steve Trang and I have launched Sales Leadership 2.0, where we're teaching people how to effectively shift the paradigm in what sales leadership is, create performing teams. I'm going to jump into some of that today. But a lot of you guys, are probably in the past or still to this day tearing your hair out over your sales teams. You have to hate being the bad guy, and you always seem to want to be the person to make everybody work, right? And so leading your sales teams is probably, if you're like me, at one point in time, the last thing that I wanted to do. I just wanted to show up. I wanted to close deals and make a bunch of money, and often couldn't figure out why my sales reps didn't have that same ability that I did, or why I couldn't find people that had that as well. So today we're going to cover 3 big things. First is my 8 steps that are going to make those emotions go away. Whether you're leading your sales team or someone else is, we don't say manage anymore, right? Because managers work from the rear and they operate in the past. And second is how you can turn that monster headache that is your sales team into an efficient and productive and profitable sales engine. And just that, it's about moving away from managing and more towards leading. And we're going to talk about how to do that today and how we're really successful in that. And that's why we really developed Sales Leadership 2.0. We say lead because you're setting the tone, the expectations, the culture, and creating an environment for success. All your salespeople do is follow this system. And if we can put you in that framework, you'll find success. And we'll go over that today. And then the last thing is we're going to invite you to be a part of that Sales Leadership 2.0 training. It's a 12-month program with myself and Steve Trang. And man, we guarantee that it'll transform your team, your culture, your sales, or you get your money back. We got about 30 spots available. And we have plenty of testimonials posted from guys and gals that have been in this, and it's life-changing for their companies, for them personally, even for their marriages, for their personal lives, and for their business. So it's a big deal. So with that, let's jump right into it. So really, there's 8 steps in the Sales Leadership 2.0 program. And the reason that we go through this is the bottom line is the way that you build and lead your sales team directly determines your success and your profits. If you want to motivate, produce energy and long-lasting sales teams, then this is exactly what you got to do. Okay. The first part of this, guys, is what I call the 4 pillars of a salesperson. And understanding this helps you conceptualize what it is that's going to drive their success. The first one, it's attitude, work ethic, strategy, and skill set. The first two, attitude and work ethic, those belong completely to the sales rep. We need them to show up every day with the right attitude and the right work ethic. With that, we come in as the sales leaders and we provide them with the strategy and the skill set. Now, due to their past experience, they probably already have a strategy and a skill set, but we have to make sure that they're finding success through their efforts, and we're coaching and training to where the rep is, not to where we want them to be, right? And it's one thing to say these things, but we have to begin this conversation even in the hiring process. And it's critically important during recruiting and onboarding that we set the stage. Hey, this is what it takes to be on my team. We have to define what is the difference between a performing rep and a non-performing rep, and what they're going to have to do to get to that performing status. And one of the main things that they have to do is they got to show up with the right attitude and the right work ethic every single day. I get asked all the time, when do you fire? When do you fire a salesperson? And the answer is pretty simple. When they show up with the wrong attitude or the wrong work ethic. If we can't coach them to get back to that, because the strategy and the skill set's going to be the outputs, right? We're focused on the inputs, their work ethic, their attitude. If we can polish up that strategy and skill set consistently over time with good support and good coaching, they will modify and produce the right strategy and the right skill set. So it's very, very important that we set that expectation on the front end in onboarding and recruiting. The next thing that's a critical component to getting performance of your sales team is pipeline management. This I'm a big believer in, and it's probably when managing my sales team, I spend probably 60% of my time in pipeline management, 15th day protocols, which I'll explain in a minute, or 30-day war reviews, which I'll also get into that as well. But you can take the most gifted salesperson on the planet with a messy pipeline, and you can take an average salesperson with a meticulous pipeline, and that average salesperson will outperform that gifted salesperson time over time. And it's because in this business, it's really all about talking to the right person with the right offer at the right time. And we can only do that through proper pipeline management. So in order to have proper pipeline management, you got to have standard opportunity protocols, standard lead protocols. There has to be clear distinctions in what we do, how we do it, and why we're doing it, right? So in our Salesforce, for example, we have a rating system, hot, warm, and cold. Hots are called manually every single day, warms every 2 weeks, colds once a month. And we got to make sure that we're in and there's proper next contact date set for our reps, and that they are taking the outbound actions that are going to help them find success over time. And, as a sales leader, we need to be in there sitting down with them, right? I schedule 45 minutes every week with all 10 of my sales reps, and I'm going through their pipeline with a very intentional agenda of what we're trying to accomplish inside of that pipeline. And really what we're trying to accomplish is to get contracts. We want to be able to turn colds to warms, warms to hots, and hots to contracts. And so when we're in there going through that process, I'm looking to make sure that they have a couple questions answered every single time on every single prospect: who they are, where they're going, how much do they need, when do they need to be there by, and what is their motivation? Because if we don't have those things, then we don't have a deal. If we don't have the objections, if we don't have the roadblocks, if we don't have, what the end zone opportunity is to push them into the goal line, then we don't have a deal, and they're mismanaging their pipeline. And they're only at that point able to pick up the super low hanging fruit, right? Which is just going to come natural through simply working. And so it's critically important that we are having these pipeline, I call them pipeline pickups. It's 45 minutes every week where I'm sitting down and going through every record in their pipeline and seeing how we continue to move them forward. And through this, you'll find that your reps will have better quality conversations. They'll spend their time with the right people during the right time and get them the right offer, which ultimately converts into what we all want as sales managers, which is putting more revenue up on the board. So really critically important. The next step that we go over and really dive into is understanding your sales reps. So There is a story, right, about, if you're a basketball fan, about Kobe Bryant. He come out of his first year in the league, he went into the playoffs, and he was just awful, right? He had one of the best 3-point percentages up into the postseason. He gets into the postseason, he's shooting air balls. Why that story is important for me and why it resonates with me is because it's what his coach did after the game. Most coaches would have went in and said, hey, you need to go shoot, 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 shoot. What his coach understood is he understood that Kobe was come out of high school. He was used to playing 20, 25 games a year. He went into the NBA. He was playing 80 plus games and then got into the postseason. He did not have a proper foundation, which means his legs. He had weak legs. And so because his legs were exhausted, it messed with his shot, and he was coming up short on the shots that he took, resulting in air balls. And so he seeked to understand before he was understood when dealing with the reps. So he understood where he was and what he needed to do to improve his strategy and his skill set. Have to understand that about our reps. And so we have a great exercise with all reps when they first come on, and it's called the deeper why exercise. And inside of this deeper why exercise, we go through things like their personal goals, their professional goals, what they want to accomplish inside of the company. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? How do they see themselves? How do they see the company? And we're able to leverage all this later in accountability conversations. You know, what's critical about the success of a rep is they've got to have clarity in the goal. Once they have crystal clear clarity in the goal and their KPIs and how they find success, then we can hold them accountable. Clarity plus accountability equals results every single time without fail. And so we have to make sure that we're understanding them as a person, taking into account that whole person perspective, so we can coach to the player, not to the game, if that makes sense at all. And it makes for easier accountability conversations. So, for example, if you have a rep and you're going through this deeper why exercise with them, and they tell you, you know, I need to make $200,000 a year. Most managers or most sales leaders, they're going to stop there and they're going to be like, great, I'll hold you accountable to making that $200,000 a year. But the difference in our approach is we ask why. Hey, Rhen, why do you need to earn $200,000 a year? And then, you know, I'm going to say, well, man, you know, I didn't come from a lot of money. My parents still live, you know, in pretty bad situation. I really That's pretty deep. Thank you for file that away, right? Because when it comes back to the accountability conversation, I'm going to pull that's their why. The money is an empty vehicle, right? They only are there working hard and grinding to get the money, but the money is a tool that's going to help them accomplish their deeper why. And the more in touch we are with that, the more that we know that, the more that we can leverage that to help them accomplish it, because sometimes they just need reminding. Every sales rep is going to have a bad week. They're all going to not be motivated. But the conversation is a lot different when we approach them and we say, hey, Rhen, you know, you missed your numbers this week. What's going on? Well, it's kind of like when you ask a kid why they didn't clean the room. Well, I don't know. Well, we want to take a slightly different approach, because dumb questions get dumb answers. And so the question that we'd ask then would be, Rhen, I see you missed your numbers. What do you think changed over last week? And they'll tell me. And then I'll call and I'll say, listen, man, you know, it seems like buying that house isn't that important to you anymore. And that hits a lot different than just do more, do more, do more, do more, because we're reminding them, hey, you're here for a reason. You're here to accomplish this dream. You're here to accomplish this goal. What has changed between the time that we set this for you and now? Is it not important that you buy your mom that house anymore? And it's just a great reminder. What's also important in that is asking them how they want to be held accountable. Because as sales leaders, the biggest mistake or misstep that I see is people are simply scared to hold their people accountable. And a big reason that we find that they're scared, and that I was definitely scared as well, is because I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. If I went and, I had a rep that wasn't performing, or they missed their contract goal, or they didn't miss they missed their call goal, I was scared to go to them and call them out on it, because for all I knew, they would quit, or maybe they would hate me, or maybe it would bring toxicity to the culture, right? I didn't know what was going to happen. But if we can shift that and have the tough conversation on the front end, what that sounds like is something like this. Hey, Rhen, every sales rep is going to go through, weeks or months where they struggle, and maybe you're not hitting your KPIs, you're coming up short on your contract goal. Let me ask you a question. When that happens, how do I approach you? How do I hold you accountable? We know it's my job, right, as your sales director, to hold you accountable. What does that conversation need to be like? And then they are going to tell you exactly how to approach them so that you get the best version of them. Doesn't that make sense? It's a much different way to approach things. And now, if you come to them and you hold them accountable and they say, well, I just need a strong foot in the ass. Just tell me how it is. Give it to me straight. You say, okay, are you sure? Yeah, I'm that kind of person. And then you come to them and you give it to them straight. They know, hopefully, hey, this is how I told him to approach me. Or we can feel and sense that they're getting a little bit upset, and we can say, hey, Rhen, this is kind of what you told me to do when we got to this point. Is this still okay? And it just makes for a much different relationship, a much different state of being between that rep and that person who has to hold them accountable. And so it's very important. Additionally to that, we like to let them set their own KPIs. And I know that sounds crazy, but we have a standard of excellence inside of our company. Every rep must want to have a burning desire or want to make $100,000 a year. And our standard of excellence from a management perspective for that, speaking specifically to acquisitions, is 2 contracts per week. In order to get 2 contracts per week, you must attend 10 appointments. For every missed appointment, you owe 50 outbound calls, because we know 50 calls will get about 15 answers. And of those 15 answers, we should be able to book another appointment. And it kind of all runs together. But we show them on a spreadsheet, hey, we ask them, how much money do you want to make? And in order to make this amount of money based on our company baseline assumptions, which are, hey, we converted 20% appointment to contract and 65% of our contracts close. If you can accomplish the same thing, you'll make this amount of money. And we ask them, are you willing to put in that amount of work to make that amount of money? And what it does is now it's their numbers. Authorship equals ownership. And so now they've made their KPIs. And if they, want to make more, then we ramp up the numbers and we ask them, are you okay with me holding you accountable for this many contracts, this many attended appointments, this many phone calls every day? And it makes them second guess if they are interested in making $200,000 or are they committed to making $200,000 a year, because the body of work, the effort, the energy, the production that they have to embark upon is much, much different. But now that we've framed it up like that in the beginning, it's a different conversation. It's a different level of accountability. They are now being accountable to themselves, to their own goals, and to the financial desires that they have set in front of themselves, and not mine. I know I make fun of a lot of people, or make fun of myself a lot. We've all seen that meme on Facebook where it's this old guy leaning up against a Lambo, and it says, if you hit all your KPIs and you hit your sales quota, I'll buy another Lambo next year. Well, it's funny, but it's true, because unless we take this, right, that's the perspective that our reps have, is this guy is hammering me about hitting these sales quotas for what? Only so he can hit his quotas and he can be successful and his job safe. But if we approach it this way, when we come and have those accountability conversations, I'm holding you accountable so that you hit your goals, which is 200K. So when you do that, you can buy your mom that house, which is her dream house. And it just creates a different dynamic inside of a sales culture, because we are truly there as servant leaders, helping them accomplish their dreams. And if you have a sales team full of people that are accomplishing their dreams, you best believe, as the owner, the director of acquisitions, or whatever leadership role that you are in, you will accomplish yours as well. And so we come from a place of servant leadership, and we frame it up, and we have those conversations on the front end and let them know these are the rules of the game. This is how this played. This is all here for you, because without you, we can't accomplish what we need to accomplish. I hope that makes sense. And then, from there, it's just they're having to work to hit their KPIs. And if they don't care enough, in our company, our perspective is if they don't care enough about themselves and their dreams to hit their numbers, then we have to ask ourselves, is this someone that's in alignment with our core values? And in our company, that answer would be no. And then it becomes a very easy decision whether or not they should continue to be on the team or not, right? That's a big struggle that a lot of people face is, keeping underperformers on the team longer than they should. It hurts the other people on the team, it hurts you, and it hurts them as well. But if we can posture it up using this framework, the decisions become very easy. And that's what we want to do as leaders, is we want to make complex decisions very simple decisions. The next thing that we talk about is the rule of thirds. This is very interesting because I've studied this across many organizations, and ourselves included. When we had 50 acquisition managers, 35 disposition managers, this held very, very true. There's 3 segments to the rule of thirds. The first are your performing reps. This is 33%. These are what we'll call promoters. These are people that consistently hit their metrics. They consistently perform. They make a bunch of money. And if asked at any day how they felt about their job, they would tell you it's the greatest place in the world. They're also the people that are most likely to refer their friends and their network in, whom are also A players, to come and work there because they just have an exceptional perspective of the company and their goal and what they're doing in the community. So that's the top half. The second half of any sales floor is going to be, or the middle half will be the neutrals, right? These people, sometimes they hit their goals, sometimes they don't. If you ask them on any given day, their opinion of the company and their job and their role and the impact that they have in the communities that we serve could be different, right? Could be, very positive, could be very neutral, could be very derogatory, depending on how their day went. And then the last part, the lower third, is the detractors. And these are people that we have got to be working profusely on coaching up or coaching out of the company, but we have to know that they exist and we cannot be blind to it. We also have to do some workforce planning, forecasting our budgets and our revenue goals around these people. These people are not going to perform, and they're probably on Indeed right now looking for another job. And we have to be hyper intentional of coaching them up or coaching them out. But we have to understand that 33% of our team on an elite organization is going to churn every 6 months. Most wholesale organizations have 100% attrition every 12 months. It was definitely true of my team, right? I could not keep salespeople, but it was because at that point in time, I had not baked in the fundamentals that we're going to talk about, we have talked about, and that we are talking about today, that are going to work to alleviate some of that high retention. And so super important to understand that there. The next thing that we want to get into is extreme accountability, right? This is going to go back to what we discussed earlier in finding their deeper why, having them create their own KPIs, and then understanding that accountability triangle, right? So imagine drawing this triangle in there. At the bottom right is clarity. They have to have extreme clarity in what it takes to show up and perform. They also have to have extreme clarity in what performing versus non-performing is, right? How do they know if they are in good standing? We have to create distinctions in the company that identify performing or non-performing. It helps them know if they're taking the right actions that are driving towards success. It helps the manager make an easy decision on whether this person belongs on the team or not. And it helps the company promote a culture of accountability. And then all of that, we're going to put a bow on all of that. We leverage their deeper why in order to drive that accountability. And authorship equals ownership. Now they've created their own KPIs. We've helped bring clarity to their deeper why. We've asked them, do they want to be held accountable to this amount of work that it's going to take to accomplish their revenue goals, which will accomplish their commission goals, which ultimately helps them accomplish their deeper why for why they're showing up for work every day. So it's super important to make sure that we're leveraging that extreme accountability through the authorship equals ownership and their deeper why, using those two tools in concert. The next thing that is critically important in any organization is building a championship language inside of your company. And what I mean by that is, how do we talk? How do we talk about our customers? How do we talk to our customers? How do we talk about our teammates? How do we talk about our daily actions? How do we talk about the successes and the failures? What are the mantras that we instill inside of our company that we live by? I'll give you a great example of that. There's a one that we had, I think, last quarter, and it was work the cut. And we always build in a nice story around this, right? And so, I told the story of a boxer. If you follow boxing at all, I don't, by the way, but I heard this story and I thought it was nice, so we brought it in. But the goal of a boxer is to get in the ring with the opponent, and they're jabbing, and their goal is to cut the opponent. Once that cut happens, their goal is to keep working that cut, and that's hanging in there in the trenches, taking the blows, but continuously they've identified a target, a prospective spot of weakness, and their job is to continue to work that cut until it opens up enough to where it disables their opponent, ultimately coming in where they can land the big uppercut or the big strike. And so in sales, it's important. We have to hang in there and we have to work that cut over and over and over again. So we come in our town hall on a quarterly, we tell that story, we tell how it relates to what they do every day, and then we make our theme for that quarter work the cut. So, every time we get a contract, every time we're having a bad day, every time we have a win, every time we have a failure, we always are just restating that work the cut, work the cut, work the cut. When they put their KPIs in at the end of every day, hashtag work the cut. When they get a contract, I really had to work the cut to do this, right? One we had before that was got that dog. We talked about what it looks like to have that dog in you, how you identify to have that dog in you. So it's entering in these, little catchy mantras that we want them to embody. We want them to control the narrative between the ears. The most important conversation that you have every day and that your reps have every day is the conversation that they have with themselves, or the conversation that you have with yourselves. And our goal as leaders is to implant a championship language. We want them to have championship level conversations with themselves and their teammates. And we have to be critically intentional on doing this. Additionally to that, everyone in all of my companies is labeled as a warrior, right? We want to give them an identity of what it takes to be successful inside a business. You have to be a warrior. You have to embody that warrior ethos and show up every day and be ready to go to war. We call them, right? When I address them, I don't address them as, hey, Bill, hey, Sue, hey, Tom. It's good morning, warrior, right? And so we're making sure that we're building culture, community, and connection through their identity. They feel like they belong and they begin to encompass that. And so whether you want to be that, aggressive with your language or not, is fine. You can be, a daisy. I don't care, but we're in sales, pretty brutal out there. So you might want to think of something with a little armor on it so we can get up and go to war every day. But bringing it back, right? It's language. Language is the most powerful tool that we have as human beings. It's why we've been able to develop and advance the way that we have. And if we can harness that tool to drive positive impact inside of our sales company, it can be a wonderful thing, right? So make sure that you're focused on building championship language inside of your company. The next point of interest that I want to talk about is coach the rep, not the numbers. So one thing that my coach tells me all the time, and I've went on and conveyed this message very frequently, very often, is run the play, not quit. Run the play, stop looking at the scoreboard. And we have to make sure that we're perfecting the play. Everyone runs different types of plays. Everyone has different skill sets. Everyone has different strategies. And one mistake that I made very frequently early on is I just trained the whole team as if they were one player. I didn't dig deep like Kobe Bryant's coach and understand what made him up as a player on my roster. What was he built from? What was his past experience? Where were his strengths? Where were his weaknesses? And if we just blanket training, it's not going to be as impactful as if we create individualized personal one-on-one training. And so we want to make a great effort to understand where the rep is, where are they struggling, where are they strong, and then how do we fill those gaps as their coach, as their sales leader. And so coaching to the rep, not to the numbers. If you get stuck on, hey, you didn't hit that contract goal, you didn't hit that contract goal, you didn't meet the quota, then how does that make them better? The real magic is in peeling back the layers of the onion, understanding where they are versus where they need to be, and then being a true coach to success and helping them fill that gap. So very important component as well there. And then the last thing is gamifying not only your training, but your leaderboards and your performance. People love games. Think about, when do you get lost? When do you have the most fun? Whether you're an athlete and you're playing sports, or whether you're a gamer and you love Call of Duty or chess or checkers, it just seems like time loses all meaning when that happens, right? When you're in that state of flow, when you're enjoying yourself playing that game. And so we want to incorporate that in our training. We play our sales games twice a week. We have things like Jeopardy. We have things like Pardon the Objection. We have different, Wheel of Fortunes and things like that. We try to make it fun and entertaining, because training is one of the critical components of running a successful sales organization. But one of the things that we've seen, and I definitely noticed, is like it gets mundane. It's the same thing. You can only role play so many times. And role playing is pretty much ineffective unless you're role playing with someone that is exponentially better than you, I believe anyway, right? So if you have a bunch of people on a call, they're all listening to a role play of somebody that is just awful. It's hard for them to take away, unless they're in a state of extreme growth mindset. It's hard for them to take away really good pointers, really good tricks of the trade, really good one-liners and things like that. So, and that's what most sales companies do is, hey, let's role play for 20 or 30 minutes and then we'll get out on the floor. So we have to mix that up and make sure that we're adding a variety. People have 4 different major learning styles. We have to make sure that we are catering to those 4 different learning styles, adding diversity in our training and gamifying it how and when and where we can. We want to create competitions, right? We always want to talk about who has the highest contract to close percentage, who has the highest average profit per deal, who gets the most contracts, who has the most talk time on the phone. We give prizes and rewards around doing that. We have a competition in my company right now. Whoever closes the most revenue in Q2, I'm going to buy them a fancy Rolex, right? Them guys will work harder for a damn Rolex that I can go out and buy for 10 grand than anything I've ever seen in my life, right? It's all they talk about. They got to have one, and it's 10 grand. And I've set a minimum threshold of revenue that they have to produce in order to be qualified to earn in onto that. And it's just crazy how that pushes them. But it's those small things that create community, it creates culture, it creates competition, which ultimately creates connection and drives success. And so I super encourage you guys, gamify your training, gamify your sales floor, gamify your goals and objectives from a revenue standpoint, and make sure that you're focusing on the right thing. One mistake that I made is we did a contract goal. Whoever got the most contracts. Well, you know what happened? I got what I asked for. We had just more contracts than we ever had, but our contract to close percentage on that month was like 22%. It was god awful. And so you want to make sure that you're gamifying with the desired end result. And for all of us, and for me especially, at least, I hope for all of you guys, that's cash in the bank. So make sure that you're driving the right actions towards the desired end state, which is cash in the bank, and not being a knucklehead like me and doing a contract contest where they just went out and overpaid for everything so they could. Because the thing is, and it's funny too, because the contract was, I had an old Harley I was selling. It was a Harley, can't even remember what it was, but it was about an $8,000 motorcycle. And I just said, hey, look, I'm going to give it away to whoever wins this contract contest. This guy locked up like 20 contracts in a month. I don't think a damn one of them closed, and I still had to give him the motorcycle to have integrity. I made the mistake. I created the wrong contest with the wrong desired end state. So, hopefully you can learn from my big right there. So Does that make sense, guys? I hope it does. And would love to start fielding some questions now, Shauna, and I'm gonna go in and wrap this up. But if you have questions, guys, start to put them in the chat there. But those are kind of my 8 steps. Those are the things that I'm hyper focused on all the time, that are impact, and I'm happy to expand on those however we can. And then, offer more intensive training on this. This is a 2-day workshop where we go through soup to nuts, every single thing that we're doing, the worksheets, the pipeline pickups, the 15th day protocols, the 30-day refreshes, how we have the conversations, how we hold them accountable, what does onboarding look like, the orientation, the deeper why conversations, like all of this is critically important and really plays into driving that culture of accountability. Super important. So
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Rhen.
absolutely, y'all take care. Reach out to me if you want to reach out, and I can happy to answer any questions. You can just DM me on Instagram at Rhen Bartlett. Love to help you guys however I can. Thank you.